Chapter 16. Dove blinked. What's going on? Ruby flung open the greenhouse door and pushed herself into the warm night air. She saw Bess racing through the chicken yard, panicked. Ruby's heart began a hard thump in her chest. She couldn't see Bemmy anywhere. She tore back into the greenhouse. "Throw me a rag from that bucket, Dove." Now Ruby's heart raced. Hurry, hurry. Dove was on her feet. What for? "I'll throw it over Bess's eyes so I can catch her. Hurry!" Dove lunged for the bucket, kicking it and wedging it between bales of straw. Thunk! Something heavy hit the ground beside the door where Ruby was waiting. Bess screamed. Ruby focused her eyes on the moonlit dark. Now she saw them. Rocks littered the yard. Ruby kept the chicken yard clean and dirt smooth. Someone was throwing rocks. Ruby couldn't breathe. She held the greenhouse door open with her foot and stretched her arms out to Dove. "Hurry, Dove!" Dove threw a handful of rags at Ruby. Ruby grabbed for them and stumbled. Thunk again. Another rock, and spap again. Desperate, Ruby scrambled to her feet, bringing the rags with her, and reached for the door. But before she could get back outside, a shattering sound deafened her. Her hands flew to her ears and she screamed. Dove screamed. The girls ducked, covering their heads as a greenhouse window fell into a million crumbling pieces and glass showered them. The lantern fell and went out. "Ruby!" Dove was under the counter, but Ruby was near the door. She lay still in a ball on her quilt. Moonlight streamed through the windows and across her back. "Ruby!" Dove screamed. Slowly, Ruby lifted her head and took a breath. Yes, she was alive. "Are you okay?" Ruby nodded and spit. Glass was all around her, maybe even in her mouth, but she was okay. Dove was okay. Ivy was... Ruby couldn't see the nest. "Where's Ivy?" Dove jumped to her feet. "Her nest is turned over. I don't see her." Ruby panicked. She crawled under the counter, ignoring the glass as it scraped at her. Bess had slammed the greenhouse door shut, trying to get inside, and now she scrabbled against it, squawking to get in. Ruby didn't hear her. She called for Ivy. "Where are you, Ivy?" Dread washed over her. "Where's the lantern, Dove? Do you have the flashlight?" Ruby stretched out her hands and felt gingerly around the greenhouse floor in the shadowed darkness. Her right hand touched feathers, and a frightened chicken pecked her hand. "Ivy! Ouch! Here she is." Ruby's hand closed around the flashlight. She switched it on and played it over the floor of the greenhouse. There was Ivy next to a bag of peat moss, sitting quietly on a pile of straw that had fallen out of the overturned peach basket. Beside Ivy was a large rock with a note attached by a rubber band. "Oh my gosh, Ivy, oh my gosh." "Here's an egg." Dove sounded triumphant, then suddenly defeated. "It's broken to pieces." Her voice was full of cracks. "Here's another." "Oh no." Her voice trailed off. Ruby didn't hear her. "She doesn't want me to touch her. I don't know if she's hurt. I can only find 2 eggs. Let me have the flashlight, Ruby." Dove took the flashlight from Ruby. "Here, help me look. We've got to find the other egg. These 2 are..." Ruby rallied. "What? They're what?" "Broken. Just broken. Broken to bits." "Let me see," ordered Ruby. Her voice curdled in her throat. Dove played the flashlight on the egg she had found. They lay cracked open with warm, wet chicks inside. There was no movement or sound from them. They had dropped too far and cracked open too soon for the chicks to survive on their own. Ruby was numb. She stared at her chicks. They were here, peeping and pecking, and now they were not. "No," she whispered it. She didn't hear anything. "No peeping, no pecking. No," she shouted. She sprang to her feet and barreled out of the door. She looked for her chickens and saw bobbing lights and shadows dressed in bathrobes hurrying toward the pink palace. Bess was roosting and looked unhurt. Ruby couldn't think. She walked back inside and lowered herself onto a straw bale, using her hands for balance. Her voice crumbled. I don't know where Bemmy is. People are coming. I don't want them here. We need help, Ruby. Look at us. By the moon's light, Ruby could see that her hands were bleeding. Dove had a long scratch on her forehead. The broken eggs lay still, their almost-born chicks inside. Ruby touched them tenderly. A lump started in her throat, hard and huge. She felt the sting of tears at her eyes. Ivy's sitting on the third egg, Ruby. It's still peeping. In the silence, Ruby could hear a faint peeping coming from under Ivy. Ivy clucked back. She would not move from her egg. Ruby heard her mother's voice, full of concern, and Miss Maddie's in charge. One tear spilled down Ruby's cheek. She gritted her teeth and willed it away. She picked up the rock that had come through the glass, removed the rubber band, and opened the note. It said, I hate you, Ruby Lavender, and I hate your stupid chickens. It wasn't signed. It didn't need signing. Ruby knew who had done this. Soon everyone would know. Ruby crumpled the note and waited for the door of the greenhouse to open. Chapter 17. The questions came. What in the world? Are you girls all right? Watch where you're stepping, folks. Somebody had found the lantern and turned it on. Flashlights played around the greenhouse, making spotlights in the lantern glow. Ruby's mother crouched in front of the girls and looked them over carefully. We're all scratched up. Dove's voice choked in her throat. Ruby, honey? Her mother placed her hand on Ruby's back. Miss Maddie stood in the doorway. They're scared half to death, Evelyn, but they're fine. Ruby's mother frowned. I don't know. Ruby was doubled over with her head on her knees. Her fists clenched the note, and she was breathing hard. Dove began to cry. Now Miss Maddie was examining the damage. Most of these panes are safety glass. It could have been worse. They're lucky. Lucky? Ruby lifted her head. A dust streak swam down her cheek. Look at Ivy. Look at the chicks. I know who did this. It's Melba Jane. She killed Ivy's chicks. Ruby's anger pulled her together. She shuddered all over and pointed at the eggs on the ground. Her mother stooped under the counter and looked. The chicks still did not move. Miss Maddie put a hand lightly over her mouth, then fished in her pocket and pulled out a handkerchief. She handed it to Ruby's mother. I can't imagine she meant to do this, but you're right, she probably did. I saw her running away from here like a scared jackrabbit. I know she did it. Here's her note. It's her. Ruby brandished the crumpled note and waved it in front of Miss Maddie, but she wouldn't give it up. Where's the third egg, sweetie? Ruby's mother dabbed at a dribble of blood that made its way down the back of Ruby's hand. She looked like she might cry herself. Dove sniffed. Ivy's sitting on it. It's still peeping. Miss Maddie left the doorway. Ruby heard her talking to Mr. Harvey Popham outside. Go on over to the Lathams and get Layla and Melba Jane. Don't you bring her here. Ruby leaped to her feet. Don't you bring her anywhere near my chickens. Bemmy is missing too. I don't know where she went. Melba left the gate open. Ruby wiped her hair from her face and left a streak of blood on her cheek. You're bleeding, honey. Her mother stood and held Ruby's face in her hands. She looked intently into Ruby's eyes. First things first. Let's take care of these cuts and scrapes. You too, Dove. Come on into the house where we can see. I'm not leaving my chickens. Ruby wiped her nose on her shirt sleeve. Miss Maddie used her in-charge voice. Ruby, you come with me now. You too, Dove. We're going to clean you up. Evelyn, can you manage here? Yes, ma'am. Ruby's mother sounded relieved. I won't go. Ruby stared at her mother. Miss Maddie held out her hand. I'll bring you back directly. You won't be any good to these chickens if you get tetanus. Now let's get cleaned up and make sure you aren't carrying glass in those cuts. Ruby's mother nodded. I'm going to take care of this glass with Mr. Harvey. When you come back, we'll be able to think more clearly, okay? Ruby faced Miss Maddie. You're not bringing Melba Jane here, are you? No, I won't do that. We've got other things to attend to right now. Ruby smelled the dirt of the chicken yard and the straw from Ivy's nest. Ivy clucked from her perch on top of the last egg. I'll be right back, Ivy girl. You are such a brave chicken. She turned to her mother. Look at how she tried to protect her chicks. Her voice choked again, and tears were fresh in her eyes. Her mother's eyes filled with tears, too. She hugged Ruby. You've done what you could do, honey. She put an arm around the sniffling Dove. I'm going to call your aunt and uncle and tell them what happened. I'll tell them you're okay, all right? Dove nodded. She sniffed again and wiped her nose with the back of her hand. Then she followed Ruby out of the greenhouse. She walked onto the porch of the Pink Palace with Ruby and Miss Mattie. The three of them disappeared into the house. Chapter 18. Soap and water stung Ruby's skin, but Miss Mattie's no-nonsense way was a comfort. She helped wash each girl's hair carefully in the big kitchen sink. Then she had each one take a shower in Miss Eula's pink bathroom. She found Hawaiian muumuus sent by Johnson on the back of Miss Eula's bedroom door and had the girls wear them while she fixed cuts and scrapes. It's a wonder you two weren't cut worse than this, she mused, as she finished dabbing both girls with mercurochrome. I was under the counter, said Dove. She was still pale. Thank goodness for small favors. Ruby had been silent all through her head wash, through her shower. She had had no comment when Miss Mattie found 6 pink muumuus behind Miss Eula's door and rolled her eyes and shook her head. She sat in the kitchen at Miss Eula's table, closed her eyes and took a deep breath. If she tried, she could smell her grandmother. She could even smell her grandfather and imagine he was in the room, in his overalls, getting ready to pot geraniums in his greenhouse. She missed them both so much. Do you hear from Miss Eula, Miss Mattie? Miss Mattie looked up from her dabbing. I do. She sounded tired. Ruby wondered what time it was. Does she ever say when she's coming back? No, she doesn't. Miss Mattie put the cotton balls back where she had found them in a bread box labeled First Aid. Help! Help! Do you miss her? I expect I do. Ruby felt the hard lump in her throat again. You do? Really? Well, of course I do, child. She's my sister-in-law. Dove walked out to the back porch in her muumuu, a towel wrapped around her head. Miss Mattie sat down in a kitchen chair. What's this about? Ruby blinked at Miss Mattie. I don't know. I just wondered. She hesitated, then spoke. I don't know what to do now. I wish Miss Eula was here and she could tell me. I don't know where Bemmy is. She could be lying in a ditch somewhere. Oh, now you know better than that. That blue-footed floozy is off to the Butterfields the minute that gate is open. I bet she's there right now, helping herself to the corn and chatting with Herman. I need to go find her. Wait for morning, honey. It'll keep until morning. Bemmy is a resourceful old girl. So what do I do now? Right now, all we can do is take care of what's in front of us. Ruby sniffed. I want to have a funeral. For the chicks? Ruby's lower lip quivered. Yes, just like the one we had for Grandpa Garnet. Will you come? Miss Mattie sighed. Yes, I will come, Ruby. She touched Ruby's wet hair. Let me comb this out for you now. Ruby didn't protest, and Miss Mattie pulled the comb from her pocket and began, gently, to comb Ruby's hair. When you lose someone you love, it hurts, doesn't it? Ruby nodded slowly. A fat tear dropped off the end of her nose. She sniffed loudly. I'm a crybaby. Oh, honey, we've all dampened a pillow in our day. There's no shame in crying. She handed Ruby a tissue. Ruby blew her nose. Well, I don't cry any more. Why ever not? Miss Mattie worked on a tangle in Ruby's hair. Last summer, when Grandpa Garnet died, Melba Jane laughed at me for crying at his funeral. She said I was no better than a baby, and she would tell everybody in school that I was a selfish coward besides. Well, Melba said plenty of things she shouldn't have said last summer, Ruby, and you can bet she cried plenty. I know her mama did. My goodness, so did I. Ruby sat still while Miss Mattie glided her comb smoothly through Ruby's long red hair. Ruby sniffed. I'm sorry about ruining the operetta this year." "You didn't ruin it, child. The operetta will be fine, one way or another. There's always another day. Matter of fact, I think this day is about to dawn." Miss Mattie took an elastic out of her pocket and pulled Ruby's hair into a neat ponytail. "There, I hardly recognize you, but I like it." Ruby looked Miss Mattie in the eye. "Miss Mattie, do you ever laugh?" "No, never." Miss Mattie smiled a smile that softened her whole face. It surprised Ruby so much. She smiled back. "Good." Miss Mattie gave Ruby's shoulder a pat. "You're going to be all right. Don't worry. This family is full of strong women who know how to laugh." Ruby nodded and blew her nose again. "Ruby," it was Dove, calling in a voice full of excitement. "What in the world?" Miss Mattie opened the back door. "Ruby, Ruby, come quick. The new chick is coming now." Chapter 19. Miss Mattie made coffee in Miss Eula's kitchen, and Ruby's mother joined her. The neighbors made their way home. In the greenhouse, the broken glass was gone. Ruby's mother had placed the cracked eggs in a small basket on the counter and covered them with a cloth napkin from the kitchen. She had put some of Grandpa Garnett's black-eyed Susans in a mason jar of water and put them next to the basket. Now Ruby and Dove leaned against a straw bale in the greenhouse, wearing Miss Eula's muumuus, watching. Ivy clucked loudly, encouraging her chick. The moon lit the greenhouse with a silver glow, and the air smelled like straw and morning dew. Ruby got on her hands and knees and peered closely under Ivy. She's out, but she's staying under Ivy to keep warm and to dry her feathers." The girls waited, and the summer sky lightened. Dove spread her fingers and smoothed her muumuu with the palms of her hands. "Are you okay?" Ruby nodded. "I'm okay. Are you?" "I was so scared." "Me too." Ruby eyed Dove. "You look different when you're not wearing your uniform." "So do you." "I never see you in anything but your overalls." Dove stifled a yawn. "What are you going to do now?" "I don't know. I'll write Miss Eula. She'll know what to do." "What will she say?" "I was thinking about it. When something terrible happens, Miss Eula says, 'Life does go on.'" "But it doesn't, does it? Those chicks will never have a life now." Dove thought about it. "I don't know. Maybe it means something else." She took the towel off her head and used it to rub her hair vigorously. Ruby was surprised to see the short white tips stand in place, just like they always did. Ivy squawked, stood up, ruffled her feathers, stepped off the straw, and there she was, Ivy's chick. She was still damp, but her feathers were drying. She was cornmeal yellow, tiny and new. She shook herself like a puppy and peeped 3 times. She tried to take a step and stumbled. Ivy stepped back over her and covered her chick. She clucked. The chick peeped. Mother and child settled themselves again. "Good golly!" Dove held her hands under her chin. "Oh, my golly!" Ruby's heart pounded in a smooth, hard rhythm. "She's here! She's here!" Ivy's chick was here. Ruby was sure the chick had seen her, knew her. After all, she'd heard Ruby's voice for weeks. Ruby thought about the day she and Miss Eula had rescued Ivy and Bemmy and Bess. It was a lifetime ago. Since then, Ivy had laid 3 eggs. Miss Eula had left. Dove had come. And Melba had ruined everything. Almost everything. Ruby didn't know what to do about that, and she was too heartsick to think. Bone tired, thought Ruby. I'm bone tired. The stars were winking out overhead. The first morning, birds welcomed a new day. Ruby pressed her fingers to her lips and kissed them, then turned them out toward Ivy. That was for the new chick. She blinked, stood up to stretch, and looked silently at the small basket on the counter. She brushed her fingertips across the petals of the black-eyed Susans. She swallowed back her tears. It'll be a long time before Ivy gets off the nest and lets her chick walk around. We should go to sleep. Good. Dove rubbed her eyes with the heels of her hands. I'm so tired I can hardly stand it. It'll be too hot out here soon. Let's go in. Miss Eula won't mind if we sleep in her bed." Ruby's mother tucked the girls in. She kissed them both on their foreheads and then on their eyelids. "Sleep tight. I'm walking over to the Butterfields to get Bemmy. They called a little while ago, and they've got her. Then Miss Mattie and I are going to the Lathams. Dove, your aunt and uncle are coming to check on you in a few hours. Your aunt said she was making you breakfast. You girls get some sleep. When that new chick is ready, we all want to welcome her into the world." She smiled and touched Ruby's cheek. Miss Eula's bed was enormous. The girls had 3 pink pillows apiece. They lay under a pink sheet wearing pink muumuus with their eyes closed for a long time, listening to the birds through the screened windows. Peaceful, thought Ruby. It was peaceful. Dove's tape recorder and camera lay on the dresser. She hadn't taken a single picture, hadn't recorded a sound. "I hear the sunflowers growing outside the window," Ruby said. "Can you really hear them growing? My grandpa always said you could hear all living things if you listened. He used to talk to his flowers, especially the black-eyed Susans. He called them the girls. He said they all look alike and they're all named Susan, and then he'd laugh." "I like that," said Dove. "Me too." The girls were silent for a moment, listening. Then Dove turned over and faced the wall. "Peas?" "Yeah." "I'm glad you're my friend." Dove sounded sleepy. She pulled up the sheet and tucked it under her chin. Ruby turned onto her side and faced the window. "What am I going to do now, Dove?" "I don't know, Peas." Dove's voice was drowsy and soft. "What would you do?" Dove didn't answer. Her breath was smooth and rhythmic, in and out. Ruby lay there a long time, listening to Dove's sleep, listening to the quiet. By and by her eyes closed and she fell deeply asleep and dreamed of her Grandpa Garnet. He was kneeling in his garden, digging for worms with a silver trowel. 3 soft yellow chicks cheeped around his knees. He talked to them and called them the girls. Ruby walked toward him and he waved at her and told her he was home now and she should get ready. He was taking her fishing on an early August morning, taking her on a fishing trip he had promised her all summer. Until next time, gotta stop now.